Hello, Dr. Grande here. I am making this video on Monday, May 3, 2021. Today my channel hit 700,000 subscribers. I'm making this video to say thank you and to answer a few questions, as I customarily do on these milestone occasions. So I have 3 questions today, to be precise. The first one has to do with my typical day, like what is a typical day like as I work on videos and other projects. The next question has to do with productivity. I've had a lot of questions, people asking, how am I so productive? Are there any tips to be productive? I'm not sure I'm really dramatically productive. There are a lot of people that work hard, but I appreciate what the question implies, and I'll answer that one as well. And the last one has to do with my choice of degree. So why did I become a counselor educator as opposed to other potential programs that I could have gone in and different career paths I could have chosen? So great questions. I'm happy to answer them, and I'll get started on that right now. So the first one, what is my typical day like? That's a tough one. So in order for me to really answer this in a meaningful, helpful way, it's first important to understand the life cycle of a video, like what it takes, for me anyway, to put a video together. And then to understand how the life cycles of multiple videos can intersect. So if I'm just doing one video, like if I wake up on a particular day and I'm just going to start at the beginning and go all the way through the end, the steps would be something like exploration, right? That would be about 2 hours. That is kind of looking at various topic ideas, researching them a little bit. I need to look at them enough to know that the topic will work for a video, and to know that I'll have something meaningful or interesting to say on the topic. There are a lot of great topics out there that I really can't add much value to. Like, for example, I'm watching the series now on the Smithsonian Channel about air disasters. I find it fascinating because it's all about like following rules and procedure, and how when that isn't done, planes can crash, although sometimes there are mechanical problems as well. I mean, often a mechanical problem is involved at some level. But either way, I find those interesting, but I can't really add any value on that type of a topic. I'm not an aviation expert. I have an interest in aviation, but there's a big difference between an expert and somebody like me. So it's really about kind of looking at these topics and making sure, again, that I can put a whole video together on that. And I think as well, I want to make topics that people are going to watch, enjoy, and learn from. So sometimes I have a lot to say about a topic, but it's not really a topic that'll be very engaging to a wide audience. So I might put it on hold or just not do it for that reason and try to focus on something that's, again, more interesting to a wider audience, because without that engagement, the learning won't really happen. Although sometimes I do pick videos that are just purely about the education, and I don't really worry too much about the views. And invariably when I do that, the views are pretty low, so it's just the cost of doing business if I want to make educational videos. They all won't have a lot of engagement potential. So either way, a couple hours for that exploration, for reading different articles like New York Times, Washington Post, Fox News, sometimes CNN, other places, other major news outlets, and then looking at the research literature and seeing if anything can be added on to the story from there, right? Like if it's about a certain disorder or something, I can find that in the research literature and then kind of know that I have a good video on the way, because I have the kind of popular culture, popular topic piece, and the science as well. So that takes, again, about 2 hours to do. So that's the exploration. Sometimes when I'm exploring for one topic, I actually run into other topics that are pretty good as well. Like I'll read a particular story, and maybe there'll be multiple defendants in a particular crime, or I'll be looking at like a famous person and they'll have a relationship with another famous person. That's also interesting. A good example would be the video I did on Sam Kinison, when I was in the exploration phase for that, I learned about his relationship with Rodney Dangerfield, how Rodney Dangerfield helped him. So then I made a video on Rodney Dangerfield as well. The next stage is the research. This is highly variable. This can be, say, 4 hours. It can also be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours. It can go on for a long time depending on the topic. Sometimes with larger projects, I divide the research over several days. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, though. That's getting into how they aren't linear, how the processes aren't always linear. But either way, if I went straight through, it'd be about 4 hours to do the research. And as I'm doing that, I'm writing it up in an outline. I use a Word document, and I put in pretty much everything I'm going to say, probably more like 95% of what I'm going to say is in there. I also kind of add pieces. I put like reminder words where I have like a longer thing I'm going to put in there that I don't need to spell out. But mostly everything I say is in that outline. And they usually run 1,600 to 2,400 words, something like that. A lot of the things I repeat in every video, those aren't in there either, right? So it's just what would be novel for that video. So I work on that outline. So I'm doing the research, I'm pulling the research, I'm building the outline out, I'm restructuring, I'm moving things around, trying to make that flow. And then, of course, move into the analysis phase, which I'm including in the research because I often do that at the same time. But in a way, of course, that is separate. When I've finished the research, I sit there and I do the analysis. But sometimes during the analysis, I revisit the research. Often that happens. So they get kind of blended together. So 4 to 6, but let's just say 4, just to keep it cleaner for this video to kind of map out an ideal situation. So 2 hours exploration, 4 hours for research, and then the actual recording, that usually takes about an hour. So if I can get my hair to cooperate, maybe a little less. No, I don't really worry about my hair, as you can tell. I pretty much just put a shirt on and hit record. Well, twice. Hit record on the camera and then record on the Rodecaster because the video and the sound are recorded separately. And I have some things that I have to situate in the room. Of course, I got to turn the lights on and move the plants and things like that. So about an hour for that. Post-production, so like editing in the software, that takes about 2 hours. If I have to grab a lot of images, it can be a little bit longer, or if I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of jump cuts. Yeah, about 2 hours. It's really not horrible. It's just a little monotonous. Like, it's not as interesting as the research or the exploration, to be sure. So you put that all together, that's 9 hours. And even as I say that now, I think, wow, 9 hours, that's like the dream, because it rarely works out to be only 9 hours. It often ends up being a bit longer. And this kind of gets me to the idea of how I don't always do this straight through. So on any given day, let's say I get to the studio here by 10 in the morning. And on any given day, I have multiple projects that are already underway. For example, those outlines I talked about, I have 100 of those right now in reserve at various stages. Some, it's literally just a name, like I picked a topic, and others are completely built out. Most are somewhere in between. So maybe like a page of the outline is written. So I have 100 that I've built over the last couple of years that they're just in progress. Some of the cases I'm waiting for a disposition because I don't want to finish them without like an answer, because the trial was supposed to occur, so I'm waiting for the trial to occur. Other ones, I just wasn't happy with them, or I got distracted on something I thought would be better. I don't want to discard the outline. So out of those 100 outlines that are at various levels of development, many probably will not become videos at all. But either way, I have multiple projects that I work on. So I might sit down to do research on one video and finish it completely. So like say 5-6 page outlines ready to go. And then I might do the first page of another. So that's usually going to take, say, another hour, because the first page takes the longest, because that's like the historical components of the story, like what happened, like what this person did, like where they were born, their experiences growing up, what they did, all that. And that's kind of technical and not really, there's no analysis involved. That's just straight collecting information and synthesizing sources. So that takes a while. So I might do that and then move back and record. And then I could record a second video from an outline that was done on a prior day or whatever, or any day in the past. I don't usually do that though, because my voice gets tired after one. But yeah, so there's all kinds of different directions I could take. And that adds time, but also, of course, I'm producing the entire time. So it's not wasted, it's just differently allocated. So either way, a lot of mixing and matching of different components. I don't have to do them all in a row. Like, it doesn't always have to be exploration, research, analysis, recording, and then post-production. In addition, of course, there are other functions that are involved, other things that I do as part of being whatever I am, I guess an influencer. I guess that is technically one of the things I do. I don't really like that word, but it is what it is, I suppose. So there's other things I have to do, like I'm writing books. I have one book coming out shortly, a few weeks, another one coming out in September. I'm excited about both, but I'm really excited about that one in September because it's a fiction book, it's a novel, and I'm working on another one now. I develop Patreon videos. I do quite a few of those. So there's a lot of other things I do that, of course, adds time to the day. So just, again, kind of starting exploration and moving through. If I started at 10, if I went straight through, which of course I don't because I would be exhausted, but if I went straight through, that would be to 7, like 10 to 7. What I usually do is 10 to 5 or 6, something like that. Go for a walk, eat dinner, come back, try to get back in the studio at 7:30 for what I call the night shift, and then work to 10:30, 11:30, midnight sometimes. And then this kind of pivots to another function where, like in the evening, say like I'm downstairs watching TV, I'm often watching videos, TV shows, documentaries, or whatever that relate to something I'm researching. It might not be the video I'm working on right now, it might be a future video. And that's also kind of part of the exploration phase potentially as well. So again, it's not always clear, they're not always well divided up. But I try to spend about at least an hour, hour and a half every night doing that. So like 11:30 to 1 o'clock, something like that. Not long after that, about 2 o'clock, I go to bed. From 1 to 2, kind of answering emails from my phone, a little bit of exploration phase as well. Sometimes I even will think about some of the analysis late at night like that, or early in the morning, or whatever that's considered. I think of it as late at night. But either way, around 2, go to bed, back up, say, at 8 to 9, something like that. Breakfast, then right back to it. 7 days a week. So that's the process. I certainly can't maintain a pace of 7 days a week forever, but I'll keep it up as long as I can. Even when I cut back, though, it'll be to something like 5 a week, so it won't be dramatically fewer videos. But yeah, eventually, I'm sure something will go wrong. Like I'll have something else I have to do in a day where I can't make a video and things like that. So 7 a week isn't sustainable in the long run, but I've managed to do it for quite some time, and I'm pretty comfortable with the routine. It's really not unusual in terms of like my work history for like the number of hours to work in a week. What is a little unusual about it is I get to do it at home, which is a lot easier, right? So don't have to be in an office for anywhere near that. It would be very difficult to do something like this in an office, like to be away from all the comforts of home. So moving on to the next question. how do I stay so productive? It kind of weaves in, I guess, to the first question. I like what I do, and what I've learned about being productive is that a lot of it really is just a commitment. And all those things that I thought I wanted to do, that I now have to sacrifice to continue to be productive, over time I learned that they weren't really that important, right? Like I could do without them. It's just a matter of acceptance and sacrifice. It's not like something that bothers me. It's just a decision. I decided this instead of doing that. So I don't really think about it too much. I think of it like about 20 years ago, I switched from drinking like soda or whatever to just drinking water. All I drink is water. That's it. And at first it was really bland. I was like, wow, this is my whole life just drinking water. Now I don't really want to drink anything else. So it's just what you're used to, I suppose. Being productive is definitely a commitment that takes a degree of thought and effort, right? It's not automatic at first, but then over time, it does become automatic. Like, this is what I do. I would be quite bored and unsatisfied in a day when I couldn't work on videos. So I think loving what you do is certainly a part of it. And I think seeing value in what you do, like the reaction for me, like the reaction of the audience, knowing that education and entertainment is happening, knowing that the videos have become an important part of many people's daily routine, those are all very encouraging to me, and I want to stay productive. So that's how I do it. I think it is a little different for everybody. And I think, too, people go through different phases in their life, so sometimes it's not as simple as just kind of focusing on one thing. Like when I was in graduate school, I had to balance a lot of different things. It was a lot of work and a lot of different types of work. There's a lot to productivity. It's not always clean and simple. I think another part of it, though, that wouldn't apply to most people but applies to me, and I think motivates me, I know it does, is that when I was younger, I guess 32 years ago, can't believe it's been that long. Yeah, 32 years. I was in an automobile accident and I was disabled in that accident. I have all kinds of problems from that. A lot of osteoarthritis and things like that. And then unrelated to the accident, I had problems with my vision and my hearing. They occurred later in my life. So for most of my life, the vast majority, I've been disabled, and that has given me a perspective on life that, well, many other people do have, but not most people, I suppose. Most people aren't technically disabled. So for me, one of the things that I think was very influential was the first time that I experienced discrimination. It was unbelievable. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, no matter why they're discriminated against. The first time it happens, you sit there like, what? Did that really just happen? This is now what people are going to do? It is. Discrimination is everywhere, and I've experienced it at all phases of my life. I'm not immune just because I have a PhD. I'm not immune for any reason. Nobody with a disability is immune from discrimination and retaliation. So that, I think, put me in a mindset where it's like survival, right? Like a lot of people, like you see these people on these different platforms, and they're like 22, 26, they're really healthy. They could be on YouTube for many years, make a lot of money, and start a whole new career, right? Like they could just quit one day if they wanted and start a whole new career. They don't really have to worry about being marketable. They don't have to worry about like the life cycle in their 20s. Considering my age and my disability status, I have to be cognizant that my money earning days might not last too much longer. I hope they do, but I know that at any time I could have to cut back work or stop. I hope that doesn't happen. I really do hope that doesn't happen. But it could. And when you're disabled, that's, at least for me, it's always in the back of your mind. Like you're thinking, okay, I have to be a little bit smarter. I have to work things out a little more carefully because I don't have that flexibility of a able-bodied 26-year-old influencer. I have a much different profile, and I'm here to survive. I want to survive and be productive. So I think for me, with that mindset, kind of appreciating every day that I can wake up and be productive means that I don't want to wake up and be lazy. I'm grateful for the chance to work. So like some people might look at my schedule and say, what, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day? Who would want that life? The alternative is a lot worse for me. So that, I think, motivates me. I think any cultural identity can motivate people in different ways. It's not just people with disabilities that can have that extra motivation. There are a lot of different experiences that can grant motivation, and I've met many people way more productive and motivated than me. But in almost every case, they have something extra that drives them, something like what I have, a mindset that they formed. It's not just what they do, it's not just the economies of life, it's something personal to them that they bring into the equation. So yeah, people are more complex, I think, than a lot of people give them credit for at first glance. That's one of the things I learned in years of being a counselor. Which brings me to the last question here. I have on my notepad. Counselor education supervision. So I have a PhD in counselor education supervision. It's an unusual degree. I mean, there are thousands of people that have it, but it's not a real common PhD. Matter of fact, really none of the psychotherapeutic PhDs are particularly common. It's just not a profession that a lot of people go to a doctorate on, right? So when I think of the major psychotherapy professions, there are, in my opinion, 4 major ones, and I'm not trying to exclude any smaller groups. There are valuable therapists with all types of degrees. But the 4 major ones would be social work, marriage and family therapy, psychology, and counseling. And of course, counselor education supervision is the leadership class of the profession of counseling. It's the PhD level when most counselors have a master's degree. That's the practitioner level of the counseling profession. And we see that system expressed in different ways, even through the other major types of psychotherapeutic professions, right? There are social workers. Some social workers have a bachelor's degree. Others have a master's degree. And there's kind of different levels there. Some are clinical, some are not. And then there are PhDs. In marriage and family therapy, there are master's level practitioners, doctoral level. And in psychology, psychology is a little different. They have a PhD and a PsyD, and then a psychological associate, I think it's called. Those would be like the master's level. Although with the grandfathering rules, there are actually master's level psychologists. I've met a few during my time. So they call themselves, they can identify as a psychologist with a master's degree, which is why words like social worker and psychologist don't really mean a lot. You really have to look at someone's education to understand what it is. There's no shortcut to it. So somebody can identify as a marriage and family therapist. That could mean a big difference, between a master's degree and a PhD. So either way, a little history of, or explanation of the framework of those professions. So why did I pick counselor education when all those other professions are available? And they're all good, right? Like, I know a lot of great practitioners from each of those categories. So here are my thoughts on that question. When I was in my master's program, when I was studying counseling at the master's level, there were a number of options available to me, just like everyone else. I could have gone in many different ways and even just moved away from counseling altogether and gone to another profession. But I was mostly attracted to counselor education because as somebody with a disability, I felt like that profession has historical roots that are very woven in with that community. If you look back to the early days of counseling, counseling started as career counseling. So helping people to find a job, to figure out their vocation. And a number of the people that early counselors would treat were people with disabilities. So I felt like it was a profession that, again, had a history that I could relate to. Like, there were things that counselor educators were saying during the time when I was looking that were different than what I saw from other professions. Just to be clear, again, all the professions are great people in all of them support people with disabilities. But it was just what I saw at the time. Like, what was emphasized for me was really the development through the lifespan that we see with counseling and how that is different potentially for somebody with a disability. So I really felt like they were on the forefront, and I still do, on the forefront of helping people with disabilities. And I think in general, I just like the idea of how they promote diversity. Again, can't stress enough, all the professions promote diversity, but I feel like counselors really make a special effort to include everybody in what they do and to research areas to help all different types of populations. So if I had picked a different one, like marriage and family therapy, social work, psychology, whatever, I'm sure I would have been happy with that too. There's really not that much difference. It's just when you're looking, you just find an area that appeals to you in a special way, like puts an edge over the other professions, like just beats them out by a little. That's the one you pick. I don't really think it makes much of a difference. I've never seen any evidence that one profession is vastly superior to another. The differences are all individual. The quality of practitioner is about that person, not about the particular degree they earn. But even still, I am honored to be a counselor educator. I like it. I'm happy with it. I wouldn't go back and change anything with my education whatsoever. It's been really terrific. And I've had leadership roles, many, as a counselor educator. It's really just been a marvelous career. I have no complaints about that particular degree choice or career choice. As I look at the world now, as things change and technology kind of weaves in with people's values, expresses people's values, like changes the way they can reach people and all, I have a lot of concerns. I think that counselor education is more important now than ever. We see the rise of really disturbing trends like trying to limit free speech, like the whole cancel culture, conspiracy theorist, moral panic nonsense brokers out there. It's really worrisome. Like, you start to think about, for me anyway, limits to free speech and the kind of crushing of diversity and inclusiveness that cancel culture causes and the whole moral panic nonsense causes. And I think that my profession is more needed now than ever. Like, there just needs to be, I think, a voice of compassion and just trying to bring everybody in. It's important to make sure that people have a way to express their opinions and their values without being judged. I think what's really changed quite a bit is that nobody wants to have a conversation anymore. It's all about attack. It's all about digging into one camp or the other and attacking people. It's really not intellectual anymore. Like, I don't see a rise of kind of an orientation toward being intellectual. And I think that when that gets limited, when people aren't applying flexible thinking skills and critical thinking skills, compassion is going to be eradicated not far behind. So to me, that's a very scary part of our time, of what's going on. And one more reason I'm glad I'm a counselor and can try to bring some measure of objectivity and reason and dialogue to the larger culture. I mean, I'm one person trying to make a difference. I don't think I have an amazing difference, but I think I can make some difference. And that's one of the things that drives me as well. That speaks back, of course, to productivity as well. Like, that's another reason I keep going forward. I view it as a valuable enterprise to help all people, whether they're disabled, whether they're not, no matter what their race is, their gender, all people. And I think that is an important part of all these psychotherapy professions again. But something that stands out to me with counselor education and supervision. If there really is no limit to the nonsense that we see across the world right now, then there needs to be no limit to the amount of critical thinking skills that can be applied. There has to be a way to counterbalance the nonsense, and I think there is. So anyway, those are my answers to those 3 questions: typical day, productivity, and why I earned a CES PhD. I hope that you found this interesting. I hope you find all the videos I produce to be interesting. I want to thank you so much for subscribing and for watching. It really does mean the world to me. It gets me up every day and in the studio and making videos. I'm so privileged to have this life, and for as long as I can do it, I will do it. So thank you so much again for 700,000 subscribers. It is absolutely an honor and a privilege. Please continue to submit ideas, and who knows, maybe they'll get to the exploration phase and the research phase and all the way through and become a video. The ideas really help me, and I think as well encourage me. Like, it's good to see all these different topics around mental health and the popular culture and politics and just all the different things that people go through as they try to navigate life. So thanks again. I will talk to you soon. Take care.